Messy and masterful. In this podcast, we speak about the success of people who have achieved, built, or done something amazing, special, remarkable, noteworthy, and/or fabulous. Think of presidents, doctors, chefs, architects, filmmakers, writers, philosophers, CEOs, journalists, and the list goes on of people who've had a genuine impact on this world. But rather than underlining their career victories, we speak about the challenges they needed to overcome to actually get there. In each episode, we discuss 3 of such challenges, obstacles, difficulties, and/or hurdles with our guest, putting the messy of their lives next to the masterful. A very warm welcome to you. My name is Alder Bab, and I'm so happy you could make it. So sit back, relax, and download the podcast here.
Yes, and a very warm welcome to a new episode of Messy and Masterful. I'm very happy you could make it. I'm very happy, actually almost overwhelmed with the many positive messages, the warmth I've felt for the podcast, you guys listening in to all our episodes and giving feedback and sharing that on social media, giving your reviews, your likes, and whatever more. It really helps. It really helps us as a production team to continue to make episodes in the best way we know how. And thank you so much for really lifting us up. So before anything, I want you to know that we do feel your presence, and we do appreciate and are very grateful for you listening in to Messy and Masterful. This episode is meant as a kind of a reflective episode about WISE11, so big event that happened last week, the World Innovation Summit for Education, which took place in Qatar, and we were honored to be a guest there. Not only that, we also were given the opportunity to interview. So we interviewed loads of people, and those interviews will be published in the beginning of next year. So as of January, we will make sure they will go into the air. This month we will have this episode, and then a very last episode next week, which is going to be about looking back at the year. But this one specifically is about looking back at WISE. And why WISE? Why are we singling out WISE? I think because the World Innovation for Summit of Education, to a certain extent, is our heimat. It's basically the foundation of, in many ways, where TeachPitch was born. So for those of you who do not know, TeachPitch is a platform that helps teachers overcome the problem of information abundance, and we do that through the process of curation, peer-to-peer learning, and to a certain level artificial intelligence. So those are the 3 components that we are built upon, because we have a very rapidly growing community of loads of people who use the platform and who want to find out more. So we're talking about 70,000 people in around about 200 countries that we're very proud of. We decided also to give birth to this podcast. And rather than making this podcast about work that a teacher needs to do or work that needs to be done in education, we decided to basically take it one step further and talk about essentially people who love their jobs, which is very much what Messy and Masterful is about and what each and every episode is about. And we're so grateful that we've been able to give life to that, and that you like these episodes, that they inspire you to look for new things and basically find new ideas. And one of our earliest supporters was essentially the Qatar Foundation in the form of the World Innovation Summit for Education. So we have been going and have been a part of WISE since 2015, and we have been going to Qatar, to Doha, for the event, which takes place every 2 years ever since. And it's really like a warm bath to go there and to speak to all the people there, people across the board. So people who work in education and who are trying to make the difference on any specific level. So not necessarily only the people who operate on a commercial level, so education publishers or people who have a new technology, but also people who have their own project, their own homemade project to change from the ground up the situation in their city, in their village, all the way up to initiatives that are changing education and education systems in their country and really have managed to bring things at scale. And I've spoken to some of those people from Mozambique and from Kenya who really are trying to make a difference in their way. And it was really great to see them in Doha and to talk to them about their ideas and how they wanted to make a change. And that is basically WISE, as I know WISE best. Like, talk to people, exchange ideas, talk about how you do things, listen to people, very important, how they operate, and try to help one another, stay in contact, whether this is, via email or over social media. It all helps. It's really a platform to exchange ideas. Now, where WISE was different from where it is in other years is, of course, the topic. So first of all, the topic was creative fluency, human flourishing in the age of artificial intelligence. So the topic was very looking at the buzz that's going around artificial intelligence today. And so I thought it was very well done that they looked at, okay, how is AI going to weigh the way we teach and learn, essentially? So how is that going to change for us? And it was good to see that on the level of AI, the message was very positive. So AI can bring loads of changes for the better to education. Questions that were asked were all around if AI was going to be there for everyone, so the equitable nature of artificial intelligence. Is it going to be something that's only going to help the better, well-endowed schools of this world, or is it going to help every single student out there? And so the discussion was a lot around that, like how can everyone benefit from this? And then the second bit was, of course, what are we looking at when we say AI? What does AI mean for all of us? And then, also the bit whereby we need to make a clear distinction between generative AI and normal AI. So AI as we've known it, so not the ChatGPT version, has been around since the late 70s. The buzz was already ongoing around AI then. So what makes it different now? And I think there are people who are saying this is really kind of a change that is going to occur. Some even spoke about it as the biggest tech-led change that humanity has ever seen. So that's quite a statement. And then others were like, listen, every time there's a new technology or there's a new tool in town, people make that statement. And one of the interviews that will be published with a gentleman who's been around for a very long time in computer science, who's also been teaching about it extensively for decades. He said, when the car was introduced, people were fearful that horses wouldn't be around any longer. So it's a little bit like, okay, how is this going to evolve? How is that going to work? So the jury's out on that one. That with regards to AI. And then the second bit, which I think is one that I would be amiss not to mention that. I feel that I would be tone deaf if I would just omit that from reflecting back on WISE, was that this WISE was very much focused on how conflict is tainting this world at the moment. And so there was a very renowned speaker there, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and he's a global voice, I'd say, on our economy. He's an economist academically, but I do think he does a lot more than that. He's a very prominent voice in international relations, and he introduced himself as one of the few people who still believe in kind of the United Nations, because it feels like a lot of what has been built on a supranational level on multi-state level organizations such as the United Nations, it feels like no one's listening anymore and that everyone is just doing their own thing. And as a consequence, there are conflicts caused by humans, caused by political conflict that sadly can be ended in a day that are ongoing. And this WISE was also very much focused on how that conflict destroys, obliterates, destructs education, and how really the people that suffer the most are the people that never asked to be involved in any conflict, are young children essentially who just want to go to school, who are no longer able to go to school because their school has been bombed or their school's no longer around, and so there's no education for them. And I think more than any WISE that I've ever been to previously, we took the time to look at that, and for that matter, we're very somber in our messaging and in our observations around that, because as you are aware, neither the conflict in the Ukraine, neither the conflict in Gaza looks like it's going to end anytime soon, let alone what happened in Afghanistan, learning for girls. So there are so many things that we need to really proactively start wondering what destroying education and educational opportunities for the next generations in those countries, what that really means, what implications that will have for these countries further down, right? It's not only just the temporary effect of taking out a terrorist organization or destroying the enemy or whatever conflict is ongoing between party A and party B. It also affects, in a very structural, in a very profound sense, the futures of the people who live there. Not only now, but 10, 20 years into the future. If you take away schools, if you take away their opportunity to just genuinely write or read, then what are you doing to an entire country? What are you doing to its entire infrastructure? What future opportunities are you giving people if you are destroying everything that they can use to further develop themselves in the right direction? Also, to make sure that they are well-balanced, clever human beings who want to change this world for the better, right? If that is a demand of us in education, then what are we doing when we kind of are bombing schools, taking down schools, telling girls that they can't go to school? Have we thought this through, right? Now, I'm not here to be overly idealistic or moral about it, but I did wonder. I really did wonder in a way that, I just look at myself. It's like, what if I would not have had the educational opportunities that I've had in countries that haven't really known war, other than the Second World War? What would my life be like? What would I be doing? How would I think about this world? How would I look at my opportunities? What would my family be like? All those questions. So, and I would like you to take just a moment, if you're listening in, to take education out of the equation for yourself. What if you would not have had the ability to read or write? What if you wouldn't have learned how to do maths? What if you wouldn't have had the opportunity to go to high school or to go to university? What would your life look like, right? And that was a question. That was a question that was very much out there and was visualized very strongly. There was a rapper from Gaza, a 15-year-old rapper, beautifully rapping for peace, peace inshallah, he said. And there were, people really talking about, okay, where do we go from here? Where do we go from here if we know that this is the destructive effects of war. It's not only kind of military targets. These are, schools are being targeted, or schools are bombed, whether they're being targeted intentionally, yes or no, it doesn't really matter. The school's gone. And then what do we think the kids are going to do? How are the kids going to learn? How are they going to continue? Right? And yeah, that was really, of course, a very somber note. But I have to say also one that, for me, articulated a certain resilience and a certain determination not to give up on those who are deprived of an education right now. So very much focused on, okay, let's try to resolve this if we can as soon as possible for the well-being of the next generation. And let's pick up the pieces and try to do as much damage control as possible. We should not give up on one another, right? And I like that level of resilience. I like that level of pushing on no matter what. If you fall, you get up again, right? And that's very much what I saw. And I, for one, am a firm believer in, if you fall over, you get up again. And it doesn't matter what people tell you, you get up again and you go at it and you make sure that you realize your goal. And of course, it's easy for me to say because I'm not in a situation whereby my school's bombed, whereby I lost my family, whereby so many atrocities, so many horrific things could be ongoing for me. For me, it's easy to talk, but I am determined and I am showing the resilience to make sure that we can help those who are deprived of an education right now, whether this is in the Ukraine, whether this is in Gaza, whether this is in Afghanistan, whether it is any country that currently has deprived their next generation of an education, of teaching and learning. I think they should be helped, and we should look at them and we should make sure that we can bring them again on the right path. So on that note, this episode is dedicated, of course, to WISE11, to the great conference that it was, to the great people I've met there, to whom you will be introduced shortly in January. And so that's one thing. But it's also one to say, okay, let's all put our heads and hands together and help, right? And for that matter, in the show notes, I've included a couple of links to organizations that focus on education that you can donate to. One is Education Above All, which is part of the Qatar organization. The other one is UNICEF. If you find it in your heart to help, then take a look at these links. And whatever you can spare, I'm sure it will be put to good use to make sure we can help those who need it most. Thank you very much for listening into this episode. As I said before, it's more of a reflection on WISE, and the people that I've met at WISE will again be presented to you throughout January. But I thought I'd share all of this with you, looking back at the very beautiful event, the World Innovation Summit for Education. And I will be sure to include also the link to WISE in our show notes so you can have a look yourself. Thanks so much for listening, and looking forward to hearing more of you in a next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.
If you liked this episode, then it would mean the absolute world if you could share it with your friends and or give it a short review on your preferred podcast platform. The more you share your ideas about these interviews, the more people will find out about them. So do let us know what you think. We'd be very, very grateful.
Special thanks to Philip Anderson for our beautiful theme music. This episode was edited by Natalie Piles with production assistance from Genta Metalia.